On the main road through Kawa, traffic slows beside a public toilet. It is curved, tiled, planted, and photographed like a monument. Farther west, a bare volcanic spike rises from flat farmland. Beyond that, a harbor entrance has swallowed ships, and an inland ridge still carries trenches built to survive British artillery. Together, these places explain why Northland is stranger than its postcard. We are descending through 10 real places into Tokatoka. Each lower level asks for different evidence: rock, industrial remains, mission buildings, charts, and battlefield earthworks. The point is not to create mystery, but to show when explanation outgrows rumor. Number 10 is the Hundertwasser public toilets in Kawa. The first strange object is ordinary in purpose.
Uneven floors, bottle glass windows, coloured tiles, curved walls, and a living roof transform a concrete toilet block beside State Highway 1. It is not a replica of European fantasy architecture. Friedensreich Hundertwasser lived in the district and worked directly on the conversion with the community. The original block dated from 1969. Local businesses wanted Kawa to become a destination rather than a place drivers passed through. The transformation opens in 1999. Heritage New Zealand lists it as the only New Zealand public building to a Hundertwasser design in which he was directly involved. Recycled bricks, bottles, uneven floors, and roof planting turned a service stop into identity. When the roof leaked, council repaired the design. The upper level begins with a place made strange on purpose.
The next appears sculpted by an artist but was made by water, rock, and an industry beneath the grass. Number 9 is Waro Limestone Scenic Reserve at Hikurangi. From the highway, Waro's pale formations look like ruined walls or oversized figures. They are karst, limestone shaped by dissolution into towers, cavities, sinkholes, and underground drainage. DOC calls the reserve one of Northland's outstanding limestone landscapes. The path around the rocks follows something less ancient. A raised platform of limestone blocks marks a horse tram line built around 1900. It once carried coal skips from a small mine to the railway siding beyond what is now Lake Waro. Hikurangi's coalfield expanded after the railway arrived in 1894, and by 1925, it was North Auckland's most important coal-producing area. Roughly 4.5 million tons of coal came from the field, with cottages and at least 5 mines nearby. In 1933, brothers Jimmy, Jack, and Albert Ackers entered a shaft filled with oxygen-displacing black damp and died. The strange rocks are geology, but the straight embankment beside them is labor. The landscape resembles a ruin. The quiet transport line at its feet is the human artifact. Number 8 is Tokatoka. South of Dargaville, Dairy Flats stretch toward a narrow peak about 180 meters high. Tokatoka looks too steep and too isolated for the plane. The surrounding volcano has disappeared, while part of its plumbing remains. Kaipara District's geological assessment identifies Tokatoka as an andesite plug from a volcano active around 20 million years ago. Softer rock around it eroded away, leaving resistant material that once fed magma upward. The council describes it as probably New Zealand's most prominent conical volcanic plug. DOC recognizes the landform as nationally significant. Near the top, the track crosses exposed rock, a steep section, and unguarded drops. The practical detail explains the form. A hard internal core stands above a landscape worn down around it. Tokatoka also overlooks another engineered surface. The Ruapekapeka flats are low, in places below sea level, and depend on drainage and stop banks. One surviving volcanic conduit watches over land held productive by modern water control. Stone resistance and human maintenance occupy the same view. If you enjoy the real mechanisms beneath strange New Zealand landscapes, keep this channel close. The next level goes underground, where a vanished forest became an industry worked by hand. Number 7 is the Northland gumfields around Dargaville. The strange object here is a polished lump that looks like amber but is not. Kauri gum is resin produced by living trees to seal wounds. When forests fell and vanished, resin remained buried through soils and swamps. Northland held it in quantities large enough to create an export economy. From the 1840s, gum traveled overseas for varnish and later linoleum. Te Ara records around 20,000 people involved during the 1890s, about 7,000 full-time. Maori, British and Dalmatian diggers probed scrub and swamp, opened ground with narrow spades, lived in rough huts, and cleaned gum at night. When easier fields declined, workers drained swamps. One documented trench at Omamari reached 10 meters deep. The held object was beautiful. The work behind it was wet, repetitive, and uncertain. Dargaville and the northern Wairoa grew through timber and gum, then adjusted as both waned after 1920. Modern pasture can therefore hide two missing layers, forest above and working ground below. Number 6 is Pompallier at Russell. Pompallier looks like a calm 19th century house behind a garden. Its form is unusual because it was not built simply as a house, and its methods were not standard British colonial construction. French Marist missionaries erected it in 1841 and 1842. The lower story used rammed earth, while the upper level combined timber framing with earth panels beneath a hipped roof. Inside were a printing press and a tannery. Leather was prepared for binding, and religious texts were printed in Te Reo Maori, as part of a Catholic mission extending across the Western Pacific. This was a workshop where language, belief, technology, and colonial competition met. The building later became a residence, but its industrial purpose explains the plan better than its homestead appearance. It is also one of only 2 surviving Russell structures that predate the Northern War damage to Kororaraka, the other being Christ Church. The walls endured while the town's political world changed around them. At the midpoint, our descent turns. Until now, the strange form could be explained mainly by design, geology, or work. From here, every place is also an argument about authority. Who controlled land, language, navigation, trade, flags, and the official account of what happened. That requires care. A memorial may be newer than its event, and a surviving building may represent one group in a larger landscape. An official report can preserve measurements while missing meaning held in oral history. Number 5 is Rangihoua and Oihi. A white cross stands above the Bay of Islands, easily mistaken for the whole story. It commemorates the service led by Samuel Marsden in December 1814, the earliest recorded Christian service on New Zealand soil. Yet the mission could exist there because Ruatara invited and protected it beneath the stronghold at Rangihoua Pā. The first Church Missionary Society settlement was established in the Oihi Valley. Missionaries sought to teach Protestant Christianity and European skills. Maori communities were already producing food and trading across the bay. The site therefore did not begin with Europeans arriving in an empty landscape. It began through negotiated proximity to an established center of power. More than 80 hectares were purchased in 1815. The mission moved in 1832 and closed in the 1850s. By then, very little land in the historic area remained in Maori possession. The cross was unveiled in 1907 after the mission buildings disappeared. The object visitors see is a memorial. The deeper place is a set of terraces, gardens, burial ground, farms, and changing ownership around it. Rangihoua asks us to look around the cross, not only at it. Number 4 is Te Maiki, Flagstaff Hill. Above Russell stands a flagpole with an iron-protected kauri base. The view is broad and calm. The object survives because earlier versions repeatedly did not. After the Union Jack replaced the United Tribes flag in 1840, Honeheka and other northern leaders treated the pole as a visible symbol of lost authority and economic change. An ally cut it down in July 1844. Replacement poles fell twice more in January 1845. A fourth went up under military guard and was cut again when Heka and Terukikawiti attacked in March. That helped begin the Northern War. The flag condensed arguments about sovereignty, customs revenue, trade, and the treaty into one object on one hill. 12 years later, Kawiti's son Mihi Pa One erected another pole as a statement of unity. Its modern name, Te Whaka Kotahitanga o na iwi e rua, expresses unity between two peoples. The replacement eventually carried a different meaning because local people gave it one. Number 3 is Cape Brett, Ra Ka U Ma Na Ma Na. The lighthouse appears to be a solitary white tower at the end of a severe peninsula. In fact, it was once the center of a small working settlement where isolation generated many jobs for the same few people. The light first operated on the 21st of February 1910. It used a mercury bath that allowed the heavy optical apparatus to rotate with low resistance, producing 2 flashes every 30 seconds visible up to 48 kilometers away. The precision cast iron tower was assembled on site. It remained the main light until decommissioning in 1978. A replacement still operates. More than 100 keepers served there as postmasters, weather observers, repairers, and parents. The station had its own postmark and sometimes a school. Government steamers initially delivered family stores about every 4 months. Weather controlled the connection. During the Second World War, Cape Brett also held signal and radar activity. The place guided ocean travelers while the families maintaining it lived at the edge of reliable access. Its clockwork machinery is the visible wonder. The deeper mechanism was a household system organized around light, weather, and waiting. Stay with me if Northland's edges interest you. The final 2 places show how a chart and a battlefield can preserve opposite versions of safety. Number 2 is the entrance to Kaipara Harbour. Kaipara is enormous inside and treacherous at its mouth. Shifting sandbars meet Tasman Sea swell, creating a harbour entrance feared by generations of sailors. One bar is known as the Graveyard. Teara records at least 43 wrecks at the entrance, with some estimates reaching 110. The careful number is the documented minimum. The broader name survives because pilots and charts could reduce risk, but never turn a changing bar into fixed ground. Northern Wairoa timber moved toward Onehunga, southern ports, and Australia, so trade still had to cross the bar. An 1837 chart prepared from Thomas McDonell's survey was an attempt to hold a moving threshold still. This is our lower level correction. A graveyard harbor does not need a supernatural story. Sand, swell, wind, cargo, and commercial pressure are enough. The danger came from a valuable route whose geometry refused to remain obedient. Number 1 is Ruapekapeka Pā. On a broad inland ridge, grass outlines ditches, banks, pits, and underground shelters. From ground level, they can seem modest. In late 1845, they formed a sophisticated response to muskets, rockets, and heavy artillery. Teruki Kawiti prepared Ruapekapeka after earlier fighting in the Northern War. Honeheke later joined him. DOC's site guide describes underground bunkers and tunnels protecting defenders, a palisade system, firing positions, and a water supply inside the Pā. More than 1,000 British troops and over 400 Allied Napuhi arrived with heavy guns. The defenders numbered roughly 400 to 500 with muskets and 2 light cannon. Bombardment breached the works, but earth absorbed violence that timber could not. When forces entered in January 1846, many defenders had moved or withdrawn, and the outcome remains debated. George Grey claimed victory, yet Napuhi land was not confiscated, and Kawiti and Heka remained at large. Ruapekapeka is now recognized as New Zealand's best preserved Northern War battlefield. DOC and the Ruapekapeka Trust manage it together. Visitors are asked to stay out of pits and tunnels, both because they are fragile and because this is not an adventure playground. The held back fact is that the earthworks did more than survive one battle. Their design became evidence in a continuing argument over how the New Zealand wars should be understood. British reports, Maori accounts, archaeology, and oral history do not collapse into one effortless conclusion. The site resists a tidy victory story in the same way its buried spaces resisted a simple attack. That is why Ruapekapeka belongs at the bottom of this descent. Hundertwasser made an ordinary structure strange so people would stop. Waro separated natural towers from an industrial line. Tokatoka preserved a volcano's internal core. Gumfields hid a vanished forest. Pompallier concealed a workshop inside a house. Rangihoua placed a memorial within an older landscape. Maiki turned a pole into an argument. Cape Brett made family routines serve a beam of light. Kaipara challenged every fixed chart. Ruapekapeka put history into the ground itself. Which place would you examine first, and which explanation changed the image most? I'm Graham. In Northland, the road often reaches the object before the story. Take your time with both. Look after yourself, and on the next road, we will begin a new national descent with 10 places whose surfaces promise one thing and whose records say another.